My husband packed his bags while I was at work. But when I found his mother's folder about me, I said, "You must made the biggest mistake that never saw the storm coming." The sound of packing tape ripping through silence feels like someone tearing apart my life, strip by methodical strip. I stand frozen in our bedroom doorway, watching Mark seal another cardboard box. He hasn't noticed me yet, too focused on his careful labeling system. The same attention to detail that once made me fall in love with him. I'm Clara, and this is the moment my marriage ends. Not with the dramatic flair of a soap opera, but with the mundane sound of packing tape and marker squeaks. "Were you planning to tell me or just disappear while I was at work?" My voice comes out steadier than I feel. Mark startles, dropping the marker. It rolls under our bed. The bed we picked out together at that overpriced furniture store his mother hated. "You're home early?" "Clearly not early enough." I step into the room, my heels clicking against hardwood. Each step feels like I'm walking through molasses. "How long have you been planning this?" He doesn't answer immediately, just runs his hands through his hair. A nervous tick I used to find endearing. "Clara, we both know this isn't working, do we?" Because I must have missed that conversation. I pick up one of his precisely labeled boxes, "Winter clothes." It reads in his perfect architect's handwriting, "When exactly did we decide this?" Mother thinks, of course. I laugh, but it sounds more like breaking glass. Vivian thinks, Vivian says. Vivian knows best. "Tell me, Mark, do you even breathe without checking with her first?" His face hardens. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I set the box down hard enough to make him wince. "Fair would be having an actual conversation about our marriage before you started packing it away in neat little boxes. Fair would be acknowledging that I'm your wife, not some temporary inconvenience standing between you and your mother's approval." "You're being dramatic." He turns back to his packing, a dismissive gesture that ignites something fierce in my chest. "Mother simply pointed out that our financial situations are fine. My business is growing. We're not struggling. Your little design projects aren't exactly reliable income. My little projects paid for half this house." I grab the box he's working on, dumping his carefully folded shirts onto the floor. "And they'd be doing even better if your mother hadn't scared away 3 of my biggest clients last month." He freezes. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, you didn't know. Funny how the Hendersons, the Patels and Brighton Corp all suddenly pulled their contracts after meeting with your mother about property investments." I start counting on my fingers. "The same mother who just happens to be pushing you to leave because I'm financially unstable." Mark's face pales slightly, but he recovers quickly. "You're paranoid. Mother would never stop saying mother like she's some kind of saint." I grab another box, this one labeled "Important Documents." "Let's see what else she's been orchestrating, shall we?" He lunges for the box, but I'm faster. Inside, beneath bank statements and insurance papers, I find a folder I've never seen before. The contents make my blood run cold. Detailed reports of my business dealings, copies of emails between my clients, even photos of me meeting with competitors. "She's been having me followed?" My hands shake as I flip through the papers. "It's not what you think." Mark reaches for the folder, but I step back. "Mother was just concerned about our future. She wanted to make sure that I was properly destroyed before you left me." I clutch the folder to my chest. "How long have you known about this?" His silence is answer enough. "Get out." My voice is ice now, all the heat of anger crystallizing into something harder. "Take your boxes and get out." "But these," I wave the folder, "these stay with me." "Clara, please." I said get out. I throw the empty box at him. It bounces harmlessly off his chest, but he flinches as if I'd struck him. "Go run to mommy. Tell her she won, but make sure you tell her something else too." I step closer, lowering my voice. "Tell her she just made the biggest mistake of her life." Mark stares at me for a long moment, then silently begins gathering his boxes. As he walks past me, he pauses. "I'm sorry it ended this way." "No," I say, watching him leave. "You're not sorry it ended this way. You're just sorry I found out this way." The front door closes with a quiet click, but in my mind it echoes like a gunshot. I sink onto our bed, my bed now, still clutching the folder of surveillance reports. Tears burn behind my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. Instead, I open my phone and dial Sophie. "I need your help. It's time to make Vivian regret ever hearing my name." Sophie arrives with 2 bottles of wine, and a determined expression that tells me she's already formulating plans. I've spent the last hour spreading the surveillance photos across my dining room table like some twisted puzzle. "This is next level crazy," Sophie says, examining a photo of me having lunch with the Hendersons last month. "Who does this?" "Someone who's been planning to destroy me for years." I pour us both generous glasses of red. "Look at the timestamps. She's been collecting these since before Mark and I even got married." Sophie picks up another photo. "Wait, isn't this from your first meeting with Brighton Corp? 3 weeks ago, right before they mysteriously backed out of our contract." The wine tastes bitter. Vivian's fingerprints are all over it, but I can't prove anything yet. My phone buzzes, Mark's number. I silence it. "He's called 4 times today," Sophie notes, watching me. "Maybe you should." "What? Listen to more excuses? Watch him try to justify why his mother having me stalked was somehow for my own good." I grab one of the surveillance reports. "Did you know she had someone track my business expenses for the past year? Every client meeting, every supply purchase, every late-night design session, all carefully documented to paint me as financially irresponsible." The doorbell rings. Sophie and I exchange glances. "If that's Mark, I swear." I start, but Sophie's already heading to the door. I hear murmured voices, then Sophie returns with an envelope. "Special delivery from the Dragon Lady herself." The envelope is heavy, expensive paper with Clara, written in Vivian's precise handwriting. Inside is an invitation to her annual charity gala next weekend, along with a handwritten note. Dear Clara, I trust you'll handle this unfortunate situation with the dignity expected of someone who was, however briefly, part of our family. The gala would be an excellent opportunity to demonstrate that maturity. Vivian. She can't be serious, Sophie says, reading over my shoulder. I start laughing, the sound sharp and hollow. Oh, she's serious. This is what she does. Turns everything into a public performance. She wants to show everyone how graciously she's handling her son's failed marriage. You're not going. Of course I'm going. I grab my laptop. In fact, I'm going to make sure it's a night Vivian never forgets. Sophie sits beside me. Clara, wait, what are you thinking? I pull up my client list. Remember Thomas Chen? The tech millionaire whose startup I did branding for last year? The one Vivian tried to poach for her new development project? Exactly. He's been looking to invest in more properties and I happen to know exactly where Vivian's weak spots are. I start typing an email. It's time to show her what my little design projects can really do. Clara. Sophie's voice is gentle. Are you sure you want to play her game? This woman's been manipulating people for decades. I'm not playing her game. I hit send. I'm starting my own. She wants to talk about financial stability. Let's see how stable her empire is when I start picking it apart piece by piece. My phone buzzes again. Mark. This time I answer. Clara, please. He starts. Mother says, I got the invitation. I cut him off. Tell her I'll be there. You will? He sounds surprised, then suspicious. Why? Because that's what family does, right? Shows up for important events? I keep my voice sweet, knowing Vivian's probably listening. I wouldn't want to disappoint your mother. There's a long pause. Clara, whatever you're planning. Goodbye, Mark. Give my love to your mother. I hang up and find Sophie watching me with concern. You know this could get ugly. It already is ugly. I pull up another email. This one from the Hendersons canceling a project we'd been planning for months. Vivian just doesn't realize it yet. My phone pings with a response from Thomas Chen. He's interested in meeting. Perfect, I murmur. Then look at Sophie. Want to help me pick out a dress for the gala? Something that says, loving daughter-in-law, but also, I know where the bodies are buried? Sophie sighs but reaches for her wine. You're really going to do this? I look at the surveillance photos spread across my table, each one a reminder of Vivian's careful, calculated destruction of my life. She thought she could break me down slowly, make me look like the unstable one who couldn't handle marriage to her precious son. I smile, and it feels dangerous. Time to show her what happens when you corner someone with nothing left to lose. The meeting with Thomas Chen takes place in a sleek downtown cafe, far from Vivian's usual haunts. He's exactly as I remember, sharp-eyed and direct with no patience for small talk. Your proposal is interesting, he says, sliding through my presentation on his tablet. But I have to ask, why come to me specifically? I take a careful sip of espresso. Because you understand the value of disruption, Mr. Chen. And because Vivian Harrison tried to manipulate you last year. His expression doesn't change, but his fingers stop moving across the screen. Go on. She attempted to use your interest in the Riverside development to pressure other investors. When that failed, she spread rumors about your company's financial stability. I pull out my phone, showing him the relevant emails from my surveillance file. She cost you that deal, and now you're suggesting we work together to cost her something in return. He studies me over his cup. This feels personal. Everything Vivian does is personal. That's her weakness. I lean forward. The Davidson project she's been bragging about? It's built on false projections. I have proof. Before he can respond, movement near the cafe's entrance catches my eye. Mark walks in with his realtor friend James. They haven't noticed me yet. Excuse me, I murmur to Thomas, sliding lower in my seat, but it's too late. Clara? Mark sounds surprised, then suspicious as he spots Thomas. What are you doing here? I straighten up, forcing a smile. Business meeting. You remember Thomas Chen? Mark's face pales slightly. Mr. Chen, I didn't realize you and Clara were acquainted. We go way back, Thomas says smoothly. Your wife's talent for spotting opportunities is remarkable. Ex-wife, Mark corrects quickly. And speaking of opportunities, I hope she mentioned that any business ventures in this area should really go through Vivian. I interrupt like the Riverside deal did. James tugs at Mark's sleeve. We're going to be late for that appointment. Actually, Thomas stands, gathering his things. I believe we're finished here. Clara, I'll have my team draw up the contracts. Your insight into local dynamics has been invaluable. After they leave, Mark rounds on me. What are you doing? Business, I repeat. You know those little projects your mother's so concerned about? Stop it. He grabs my arm as I try to leave. Whatever you're planning with Chen, I wrench away. Don't touch me. You lost the right to question my business decisions when you let your mother destroy them. She was trying to protect our family's interests, your family's interests. My laugh draws stares from nearby tables. Tell me, Mark, did those interests include having me followed, photographed, having my clients threatened? He runs a hand through his hair. That familiar gesture that used to mean stress but now just reminds me of manipulation. It wasn't like that. Mother only wanted I know exactly what she wanted. I gather my things, hands shaking slightly. And now she's going to get it, just not the way she expected. My phone buzzes. Sophie, sending details about the charity gala. Another message pops up from Thomas. Meeting set with Davidson investors. Tomorrow. Clara. Mark's voice has softened. Please don't do anything rash. Mother can make things very difficult. More difficult than destroying my marriage, my business, my reputation. I show him the surveillance photos on my phone. How much more difficult can it get, Mark? He stares at the photos, recognition flickering across his face. Where did you get these? From the files you left behind. The ones documenting every move I've made for the past 3 years. I lean closer, dropping my voice. Did you enjoy reading them? Did you and Vivian sit together planning how to break me down piece by piece? It wasn't. I didn't. He stops, looking lost. I just wanted everyone to be happy. Well, congratulations. Your mother's happy. You're free to be her perfect son again. I start walking away, then pause. Oh, and Mark? Tell her I'm looking forward to the gala. I have so many people I want to introduce her to. Outside, I take deep breaths of cold air until my hands stop shaking. Thomas's message still glows on my screen, promising the first real crack in Vivian's carefully constructed empire. My phone buzzes again. Sophie, how did it go? She asks. I watch through the cafe window as Mark makes a call, his movements agitated, probably warning Vivian. Better than expected, I answer. The game's changing, Sophie, and Vivian's about to learn she's not the only one who knows how to play. The Davidson investors meeting feels like a chess match where every piece is made of glass. I sit quietly watching Thomas Chen methodically dissect Vivian's project projections while her face grows increasingly rigid. These numbers seem optimistic, Thomas says, tapping the spreadsheet, particularly given the current market conditions. I noticed Vivian's perfectly manicured nails digging into her leather portfolio. She doesn't look at me, but I feel her awareness of my presence like static electricity. The projections are sound, she replies smoothly. I've personally overseen every aspect of this development, so including the environmental impact reports. I slide a folder across the table because these documents tell a rather different story. The room temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. Vivian's eyes finally meet mine and I see something I've never witnessed before, fear. Where did you get those? Her voice remains steady, but her knuckles are white. The same place you got your surveillance photos of me. I maintain eye contact. Interesting what people will share when they realize they're not the only ones you've manipulated. Thomas clears his throat. Ladies, perhaps we should focus on, this meeting is over. Vivian stands abruptly. These allegations are baseless and sit down, Vivian. The command comes from Robert Davidson himself, silent until now. I'd like to hear more about these discrepancies. My phone buzzes. A text from Sophie, 911. Mark at your house. Something wrong? I force myself to stay seated even as my stomach twists. The environmental reports were altered, I continue, to hide contamination from previous industrial use. The cleanup costs alone would triple your projected expenses. That's impossible, Vivian snaps. Those reports were confidential, like the photos of me meeting clients or the financial records you used to convince Mark I was unstable. My phone buzzes again. I ignore it. Robert Davidson leans forward. Mrs. Harrison, is there something you'd like to explain? The meeting dissolves into technical discussions and legal implications. I slip out during a heated exchange about soil samples, my phone now vibrating constantly. Mark is sitting on my porch steps, head in his hands. He looks up as I approach and my sharp words die in my throat. His face is ashen. What happened? Mother had a heart attack. His voice is hollow. Right after some meeting they took her to St. Mary's. The triumph I'd felt moments ago curdles in my stomach. Is she stable for now? He stands swaying slightly. She was asking for you. I bark out a laugh. Me? Why would she? Because she knows. Mark's eyes are red-rimmed. About everything. The Davidson deal, Thomas Chen, the environmental reports. She said she underestimated you. My hands start shaking. Mark, did you know? He steps closer. About the contamination, about how exposing it wouldn't just ruin her but everyone connected to the project, including me? The pieces click together with sickening clarity. Of course Vivian would have ensured Mark was legally entangled in the development. Of course she'd use him as a shield. I stop, remembering all those nights I'd spent plotting, focusing only on Vivian. Had I become just like her, willing to destroy anything in my path? My phone rings. Sophie again. Clara? The Davidson story just broke online. It's bad. Really bad. I watch Mark's face as he receives a text, probably containing the same news. He looks like a man watching his world burn. I have to go, he says quietly. Mother's asking for her lawyers. He pauses at the bottom of the steps. You know what's funny? She always said you weren't strong enough for this family. Guess she was wrong about that too. After he leaves I sit on the porch steps, staring at my phone as notifications flood in. The story is spreading fast. Vivian Harrison, prominent developer caught in environmental scandal. Her empire beginning to crack. I should feel victorious. Instead I remember the fear in her eyes at the meeting. So similar to what I'd felt when discovering Mark's packed boxes. The way revenge has turned me into someone who could hurt others without flinching. Sophie's car pulls up. She takes one look at my face and sits beside me. What have I done? I whisper. She takes my hand. Exactly what she taught you to do. My phone lights up with another call, this time from Thomas Chen, probably wanting to discuss damage control. Next steps, the pieces of Vivian's empire now up for grabs. I let it ring. St. Mary's Hospital smells like artificial lemons and regret. I've been sitting in the waiting room for an hour, turning my phone over and over in my hands, watching news alerts pile up about the Davidson scandal. Each headline feels like another brick in a wall I can't tear down. You didn't have to come. Mark's voice startles me. He looks exhausted, suit wrinkled like he's been sleeping in it. Your text said she's asking for me. She is. He runs a hand through his hair, though I'm not sure if that's a good thing. The walk to Vivian's private room feels endless. Through the window I see her propped up in bed, looking smaller somehow, vulnerable. It's unsettling, like seeing a lion with its teeth pulled. Clara. Her voice is weaker than usual, but her eyes are sharp as ever. Close the door. Mark hesitates. Mother, maybe we should out. One word, but it carries all her usual authority. He leaves, shoulders slumped. I remain standing, keeping my distance. You wanted to see me? Sit. She gestures to the chair beside her bed. We need to discuss terms. Terms? I almost laugh. I'm not here to negotiate. No. She picks up her phone, taps something, then shows me the screen. My breath catches. It's an email chain between Mark and several Davidson project investors dating back months. His signature on documents he shouldn't have signed. Proof of his involvement in the cover-up. You really think I wouldn't have insurance? Her smile is thin. Mark's fingerprints are all over this. One call and he goes down with me. My hands clench. You destroy your own son to protect him from himself? In a heartbeat she sets the phone down. The question is, would you? The monitor beeps steadily in the silence. Through the window, I see Mark pacing in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, probably talking to lawyers already. What do you want? Retraction. Public statement claiming your evidence was misconstrued. Technical error in the environmental reports. She lists each point like she's ordering dinner. In exchange, these emails disappear. My phone buzzes. Thomas Chen again. I've been dodging his calls since the story broke. And if I refuse, then Mark faces criminal charges. His career, his reputation, everything gone. She adjusts her position, wincing slightly. You've proven your point, Clara. You're stronger than I thought. But ask yourself, is revenge worth destroying the man you once loved? Before I can answer, there's a commotion in the hallway. Sophie bursts in, ignoring the nurse's protests. Clara, don't say anything else. She waves her tablet. The Davidson Group just released their own statement. They're claiming full responsibility for the environmental cover-up. They're saying Vivian was misled too. Vivian's monitor spikes briefly. What? Sophie continues. Thomas Chen's team found evidence that Davidson's own environmental department falsified initial reports before bringing you in. They're taking the fall to avoid bigger investigations. I watch the color drain from Vivian's face as she processes this. Her perfect insurance policy, worthless. Mark's involvement, now a minor footnote in someone else's scandal. You should rest, Vivian. I stand, finally meeting her eyes. Stress isn't good for your heart. She grabs my wrist as I turn to leave. Her grip is surprisingly strong. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I gently remove her hand. You taught me well. Always have a backup plan. Always be 3 steps ahead. The Davidson Group owes me a favor from an old project. Calling it in was expensive but worth it. You couldn't have known that you'd try to sacrifice your own son to save yourself. I moved toward the door. Maybe not, but I knew you'd try something. You're predictable that way. In the hallway, Mark stares at me like he's seeing me for the first time. The Davidson statement, did you? You should call your lawyer, I tell him. Make sure you're protected when they start official investigations. And Mark? I pause, feeling the weight of Vivian's glare through the window. Maybe it's time to start making your own decisions. Sophie falls into step beside me as we leave. That was intense. You okay? I look back at the hospital room where Vivian sits alone, her empire crumbling despite her desperate grab for control. The victory tastes different than I expected. Not sweet, not bitter, just empty. No, I answer honestly, but I will be. My phone buzzes again, another news alert about the scandal. I switch it off without reading it. Some victories don't need an audience. The charity gala feels like walking into a beautifully decorated trap. Crystal chandeliers throw fractured light across faces I've known for years. Clients, competitors, friends who've chosen sides in the wake of the Davidson scandal. Their whispers follow me like perfumed shadows. Quite brave of her to show up. Did you hear about Vivian's condition? I heard she orchestrated the whole thing. Sophie squeezes my arm. We can still leave. No. I straighten my spine, gripping my champagne flute like a shield. This is exactly where I need to be. Across the room, Mark stands with a group of investors, his usual confidence replaced by something more brittle. He catches my eye, then quickly looks away. The gesture feels like a preview of what's to come. Clara Thomas Chen materializes beside me. A word? We move to a quieter corner where the orchestra's music provides cover for conversation. His expression is grave. The Davidson Group is retracting their statement. The champagne turns sour in my mouth. They can't. We had a deal. They found better terms elsewhere. He glances meaningfully across the room to where Vivian has just entered, looking remarkably recovered. She's speaking with Robert Davidson himself, their heads close together. That's impossible. The evidence has been re-examined. Thomas's voice is carefully neutral. New experts suggest different interpretations. My hands are tied. The room suddenly feels too warm, too crowded. When? The announcement goes out tomorrow morning. Clara. He hesitates. You might want to prepare for Clara. Vivian's voice cuts through the murmur of conversation. She's walking toward us, Robert Davidson in tow. I'm so glad you came. We have something to discuss. The crowd parts around them like water. I feel dozens of eyes watching, waiting for the drama to unfold. This is what Vivian does best, turns private wars into public spectacles. I'm not interested in, oh, but you should be. Her smile is razor sharp. Robert has just shared some fascinating insights about certain manipulated documents. Apparently someone went to great lengths to create a very specific narrative. My heart pounds. The environmental reports all were perfectly accurate. Robert Davidson steps forward. The altered versions, however, seem to have originated from an interesting source, your design firm's servers to be precise. The champagne flute slips from my fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The crash draws every eye in the room. That's not possible. But even as I say it, I remember giving Thomas's team access to my systems, trusting them to handle the technical details. You set me up. Vivian's smile widens. I told you once that you weren't strong enough for this family. I should have been more specific. You're not smart enough either. Mark appears at her side looking sick. Mother, please, not now, dear. She turns to the gathering crowd. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. As you may have heard, I've had some health challenges recently, but they've helped me realize what truly matters: family, loyalty, and truth. The word truth falls like a hammer. Several phones are out now recording tomorrow's headlines, writing themselves in real time. Clara thought she could destroy what I've built. Vivian's voice carries perfectly. Instead, she's demonstrated exactly why I was right about her all along. Amateur moves have amateur consequences. I look for Sophie, but she's been pushed to the edge of the crowd. Thomas Chen has vanished completely. The trap closes with elegant precision. Security will escort you out. Vivian's final twist of the knife. And Clara, expect to hear from our lawyers. Fraud charges are just the beginning. As two suited men approach, I catch a last glimpse of Mark's face. There's something there. Regret? Pity? But he doesn't move to help. Some patterns never change. Outside, the night air hits like a slap. Sophie rushes out behind me. Clara, wait. We can fix this. There must be something. Don't you see? My laugh sounds hysterical even to my own ears. She planned this from the moment I found those surveillance photos. Everything. The hospital, the Davidson statement, Thomas Chen. It was all part of her game. What are you going to do? I stare up at the gala's glittering windows where life continues as if my world hasn't just imploded. Somewhere up there, Vivian is savoring her victory, probably already planning her next move. The only thing I can do, my voice steadies. Learn to play better. The flash drive feels impossibly heavy in my hand as I stand outside Vivian's office. Through the glass walls I can see her at her desk, orchestrating her empire's recovery with practiced ease. The fraud charges against me are still pending, but she's already moved on to new victories. She looks up as I enter, her smile sharp as broken glass. Clara, security didn't mention you had an appointment. They're busy dealing with the press downstairs. I close the door behind me. Something about anonymous tips regarding offshore accounts and falsified insurance claims. The smile freezes. More desperate accusations? Haven't you learned? Actually, I learned exactly what you taught me. I placed the flash drive on her desk. About keeping receipts, about having insurance. She doesn't touch it. What is this? Everything. Your real financial records, the bribes to building inspectors, the money laundering through shell companies. I tap the drive. Even that interesting transfer to Thomas Chen's private account right before the gala. You're bluffing. Mark helped me find it. That lands. For the first time, real fear flickers across her face. Mark would never check your phone. She does, and I watch the color drain from her face as she reads whatever message Mark has just sent. When she looks up, her composure is cracked. What do you want? Funny. That's exactly what you asked me in the hospital. I sit down uninvited. But I'm not here to negotiate. Then why? Because I want you to understand something. I lean forward. You didn't lose because I outsmarted you. You lost because you taught Mark the same lessons you taught me about survival, about loyalty, about always having an escape plan. Her hand trembles slightly as she reaches for her phone again. I can still destroy you. One call to who? The Davidson Group? I pull out my own phone, showing her the email chain. They're already distancing themselves. Seems their board doesn't appreciate being used in personal vendettas, bad for business. A commotion rises from the lobby below. Through the glass walls we can see reporters gathering, cameras ready. They're here for the press conference, I tell her. The one where Mark explains how his mother's company has been operating for the past decade. Unless what? Her voice is barely a whisper. Unless you sign everything over to him. Today, let him run the company his way without your guidance. She laughs, but it sounds hollow. You think this will fix anything? That Mark will suddenly become his own man? No. But it gives him a chance. I stand. Which is more than you ever gave either of us. The elevator dings. Mark steps out, flanked by board members and lawyers. Through the glass our eyes meet. He looks different. Stronger maybe, or just free. You've destroyed my family, Vivian says quietly. No, you did that yourself. I just showed Mark the evidence. She stares at the flash drive for a long moment. Below, the crowd of reporters grows. Her empire teeters on the edge of exposure, ready to crumble. He's my son, and he deserves better than what you've given him. I move toward the door. You have 10 minutes to decide. After that, Mark starts talking. You really think you've won? She calls after me. That this makes you better than me? I pause, hand on the doorknob. No, it makes me exactly like you. That's what scares you most, isn't it? The look on her face tells me I'm right. As I walk away, I hear her calling for her lawyers. Through the glass, I watch her pick up the flash drive with trembling fingers. Mark meets me at the elevator. Did she? Give her a minute. I press the lobby button. She taught us both about power, Mark. Now she gets to learn about losing it. He nods slowly. What happens after? That's up to you. The elevator starts descending. But whatever you decide, make sure it's actually your decision. As we reach the lobby, my phone buzzes. A message from Vivian's lawyer. She's ready to sign. You know, Mark says quietly, she'll never forgive either of us for this. I watch the numbers count down floor by floor. Some victories aren't about forgiveness. The elevator doors opened to camera flashes and shouted questions. Mark straightens his tie, ready to face them, ready to start over. I step back, letting him take the lead. Some battles you win by walking away. The moving boxes in Vivian's office look wrong somehow. Too ordinary for the end of an empire. She's taking down her awards when I arrive. Each acrylic testament to her success carefully wrapped in newspaper. Come to gloat? She doesn't turn around. No. I set a folder on her desk. To return these. She glances at the surveillance photos spilling out. Keep them as a souvenir. I don't need souvenirs. I watch her hands shake slightly as she wraps another award. The company announcement went out this morning. Mark's doing well. He's gutting everything I built. Finally she faces me. The past month has aged her decade. Was that your idea or his? You really still don't understand, do you? I pick up one of her photos, her and Mark at some charity event, both smiling perfectly. He's not destroying your legacy, he's fixing it. Her laugh is bitter. By exposing our methods, canceling profitable contracts, that's not fixing, that's surrender. That's integrity. I set the photo down. Something you taught him to fake so well, he finally wanted the real thing. A knock interrupts us. Mark stands in the doorway looking uncertain. These days he always looks uncertain when his mother's involved, like he's still learning to trust his own judgment. The board meeting's starting. He tells her, they're waiting for your formal resignation. Vivian straightens her jacket. Armor for one last battle. I suppose you'll both enjoy watching this. Actually, I'm leaving. I move toward the door. This part isn't about me. Mark catches my arm as I pass. Clara, wait, I never thanked you, don't. I gently pull away. Just do better, both with the company and... I glance at Vivian, still proud even in defeat with family. Hey, is that what we are now? Vivian's voice stops me. Family? No. But maybe someday Mark can have one that doesn't run on fear. Outside, Sophie waits by her car. She's been my constant through all this, watching me become someone she probably doesn't fully recognize anymore. Ready for your meeting? She asks. I nod. My new design firm launches next week. Bigger projects, bigger clients, built on reputation rather than revenge. It feels strange starting over. Good strange? I look back at the building where I first learned about power, both wielding it and surviving it. Through the windows I can see Mark leading Vivian toward the boardroom, their shadows stretching long against the glass. Just strange. I get into the car. Did you know Vivian called me yesterday? Said she's finally proud of me, that I proved her right about what it takes to succeed in this world. Sophie starts the engine. Did you tell her where to stick her pride? No. I watch the building shrink in the side mirror because part of me thinks she's right. I became exactly what she always wanted Mark to be, someone willing to burn everything down to win. You're nothing like her, aren't I? I used her own tactics against her. Played her game, just better. I turn away from the mirror. The difference is, I chose to walk away after winning. She never could. Sophie navigates through traffic in silence for a moment. So what now? Now, I pull out my phone where an email from Mark waits unread, probably about the company transition or maybe something more personal. I leave it unopened. Now I figure out who I am without revenge driving every decision. And if Vivian tries something else, I think about the final piece of leverage I still have. Evidence I never showed Mark. Proof of crimes that would destroy what's left of his relationship with his mother. It sits in a safe deposit box, my own insurance policy, my own piece of Vivian's legacy. Then I'll remember what winning really cost. I switch off my phone. Some victories feel like losses when you look at them right. Sophie pulls up to my new office building. The sign company is just finishing installing my company's logo. Clean, modern, nothing like the Harrison aesthetic. You know what the weird part is? I gather my things. I think Vivian finally respects me, not for beating her, but for knowing when to stop. Is that enough? I step out into the morning sun looking up at my name against the clear sky. It has to be. Otherwise I'm just another version of her waiting to self-destruct. The door closes behind me with a soft click. Final as a period at the end of a very long sentence.